Hey guys, so there's a video I've been wanting to make and also an email I've been wanting to write for the last 4 or 5 days. And someone emailed me pledging $1,800 over the next 12 months to the work that we do here at Feather's Tail in the New Cheer. And they started that email, or within that email at least, they said, "John, you're a better man than I am." And they were saying this because they felt that they were very materially focused, and that they said inside their email that they wanted to do something more than collect looks from people as they drive by in their sports car. Now, I wanted to make this because I wanted to make something really clear. If you feel that way, then you should know that in 2010, we're now in 2017, 2010, beginning of 2011, I was driving around in a sports car collecting looks as well. Now, I'm not a better man than you. I'm just not. Perhaps I found a connection to my spirituality and service to others faster than what you have, but I am not a better man than you. I was doing the same thing 6 years ago, not long ago. It's hard for many of you to imagine me like that, I know, but this is what I was like. I would smoke drugs, I would chase girls, and I would drive fast cars. Now, in 2011, things started shifting, but at the beginning of that year, I still had my sports car, and I still liked to go out and catch a look from people. I was so materially focused, just as you expressed. And this also ties into something that's gone on with me this week, which I'll mention. My oldest friend on this planet of ours is called Adam, and he's been in the Navy for nearly 10 years now, so I haven't seen much of him, but we've always managed to meet up over Christmas, and we've lost contact for 6 months or a year at a time, but we've always managed to get back together, be it social media or making a phone call or seeing each other Christmas time when we go home to visit our families. And for all we're very different persons, Adam, he has a wonderful heart and I love him a great deal, but we're at opposite ends of a spectrum. I mean, he's working in the Navy as a cook, and he knows there is a God, but he still holds on to his old behaviours, which must be very difficult to shift, and I don't judge anyone for it, but I mean, he's not doing it here because it's not allowed. He's only been for 3 nights. He climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, actually, which is why one of the reasons he came here, and then to come and surprise me as well. And he still drinks, etc. But he spoke with me about my past, and after we'd spoken about past memories, etc., things I hadn't thought about for a very long time, when he left to go, he's been staying at a house down in the village because there's no space here. I said to Fritzy, I said, you know, it's very difficult for me because the man who he really knew, who when we were spending more time together in our late teens and early 20s, say man loosely, probably boy's a better label. I'm not saying you're a boy if you're that young, but I was behaving like a boy then. I said that person, he is me, but he's not me. I said, and there's no way he could do what I do today. He was not disciplined enough. He was not loving enough. He was far too selfish. He was far too materially focused. He was far too lazy. Didn't have the energy. He wasn't as mentally equipped as I am. He wasn't, as humbly as I say, as knowledgeable and intelligent as I am. Now, this ties into the teachings of a wondrous man, as we all know, Yeshua, or Jesus. And when Jesus spoke with Nicodemus, he said that truly a man must be reborn. He must be born again. And Nicodemus said, which relates to the literalism of things, that how can a man climb back in the womb and be born again? Or can a man be climbed back in the... Jesus said, no, of course not. It's of the Spirit I speak. Because you are born again in spirit. You're born again in the Christ. Six, 7 years ago, I'll say 7, it's probably more accurate. 7 years ago, I was doing what you're doing, which led you to say that I am a better man than you, as you see my actions today, not my actions back then. But as I say, I'm not a better man than you. But what happened was, I began to seek God. And the only reason I feel these days for our sojourn on this planet is to seek God and to serve others. But once over, the only reason I thought I was on this planet was to chase girls, to party on a weekend, and to own nice cars and to have a nice home or nice clothes. Now what changed? I'm still the same person. But just as Jesus says you must be, I was reborn. I was born again. And you can be born again too. And that means that I'm not a better person than you, in the least. It just means I'm lucky enough to have gone through a process and a relationship with God at an earlier stage in my life than what you have. Now, 7 years ago, I'm driving around in sports cars and drinking alcohol and chasing women. 6 years ago, I started my journey to purge myself of all of the damage I had done psychologically, within my habits and my behaviours, physically, within the damage I had done by taking drugs and smoking, etc. And spiritually, in the life I had lived, ignoring God. Well, just ignoring God completely and focusing on the material domain. And the material domain, as is said, is the domain not of God but of the opposing force. Not to say you should neglect it, but to worship it is where you have that problem. Now, in that time I was fasting and I was praying and I was seeking God with everything I had. And there was this one particular time I had not had a conversation with another human being for weeks. I was fasting, I was alone, and I was deep in prayer. And all of a sudden I hit this point of absolute present-mindedness. And nothing could falter from it. I was just able to absorb information so easily. I was able to sit alone and be happy and present easily. I was able to do whatever I needed to do with ease. And I now know that what had happened is that after all of this riotous living, I had preserved the thing I speak about, the sacred secretion. I remember during that time I sat reading the teachings of a Coptic saint called Saint Seraphim of Sarov. Wonderful teachings that he has on many things, just short, but they resonated with me at the time. And I also listened to a Coptic monk speaking online called Father Lazarus, who spoke nothing of esoterics, but I could see that he'd reached a point of connection. But I started to say to myself, there has to be a scientific thing behind this. Why, when I'm fasting and very clean, all of a sudden do I have this presentness with God? And this is where God led me to show me about esoterics and the sacred secretion, Christ seed, the chrism, the iktos. As George W. Carey wrote, the secretion is the nourishment for your mind. And just as I said, the man I once was not compassionate enough, but he was also not knowledgeable enough or intelligent enough to do what I do now. I say as humbly as I can, but he was not. And I have, since learning the science, every month endeavoured to preserve my secretion and my seed, and to nourish my mind, and to be born again. information regarding this was destroyed on the planet predominantly by the Christian religions at the time. They destroyed the libraries of Alexander and so on. But some of it made its way out into the world, and some of it remained encoded in their texts and in their scriptures. And they ostracized and they harmed those who practiced esoterics and the secretion, because it meant you had an internal function that could clear your body, could heal your body. You had an internal function that would help you to find a presence with God without having to go to an institution and beg for forgiveness. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't ask for forgiveness from God, but what I'm saying is, in practicing the secretion, in practicing the maintenance and the preservation of it, played a massively integral role in myself being born again, just as Jesus spoke to Nicodemus, that a man must be born again in spirit. Just as it is said, man does not live by bread alone, but by the word of God. This is esoteric language. The word of God is the sacred secretion, which allows you to activate and to hear that which God wishes for your life. And as I say, George W. Carey said that the secretion is the nourishment for the mind. So all you need to do is ensure that you find discipline over your sexual body. You find discipline over your appetite, which is everyone overeats. I know that you're in very good shape, but most of us overeat and cause fermentation. You must also sidestep alcohol. Whilst you're preserving your secretion, it is protected. It is said in the esoteric scriptures. And I practice this and I felt it, I feel it. I'm just out of the moon being in my sign and I'm recharged, I'm lighter. And I'm sure that towards the end of last month I definitely was not. There was a protective coating, and when acidity in your body forms, this is when you lose it. It is cast upon the waters, lost in riotous living. So, what I would say is that we should all endeavour to be born again. Born of spirit, born of mind, born of focus, born of habit, reborn away from addiction, which are your habits most of the time. Every aspect of us should be born anew. But one of the greatest tools to allow me to be born anew was knowing about the sacred secretion, knowing about the chrism, as it is called in the ancient Greek. And in knowing about that, God was able to lift me to a higher level, a higher plane. And I didn't need to seek the material highs anymore because I had a natural, internal state of peace. There was no conflict, so there was no reason to go and smoke drugs or no reason to go and drink something. I was complete. Because I was born again. On every level. But I know God would not have shown me the teachings that I know of the Christ seed, etc., if they weren't imperative and integral to all that I've done. And they are. They truly are. I feel it. My clarity, my productivity, everything increases beyond comprehension when I get to that time of the month. And I nurture and preserve that wonderful gift. So, I'm not a better man than you. And you're not a lesser man than I. And I've been wanting to write you an email, but I haven't been able to find the right words, and I hope they came out in this video instead. I love you for sharing with the children, but I want you to find space in yourself to love the disciplined side of yourself. By all means, despise the undisciplined. By all means, do it. But if I can come where I've come in 6 years, then you can too. Everyone can. Maybe even in less time. For me it took 6 years. Maybe someone might be a little more disciplined than me and do it faster. I don't know. Might be more in the vortex, more aligned. That's all I wanted to say. Yeah. Much love, guys.
Emana yo 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 yo, 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 Emana yo yo.